news and notes to the coaches and players for America's team, let us go inside the stars on 105.3 The Fan.
Good morning, Metroplex. Sean and RJ here on a Monday. Shan Sharif is out today and the rest of this week. He is moving into his what would we call it? His palatial estate or
very nice new house. Very nice new house.
Boy, I want that contract. I want that Shan Sharif contract.
Look, you can get more money there. I've told him for years, you get more for your more bang for your buck the further outside of town you move. I didn't realize he was going to move to the other side of the world.
It's not that bad. Boy, I'll tell you what, though.
I am a between the cities guy.
Yes, I
am a between Dallas and Fort Worth guy.
Yeah, I could see that, especially for commute. I understand that. We've got a big Metroplex. I know the signal reaches far and wide. And so there are just certain things. Like, I remember we were looking at one point, going to Justin, wife and I, and it was just like, man, it's really hard for that commute to be on the other side of the speedway. It's just really hard to where we have to commute each day.
I want to be inside the 35s.
So makes sense. But Shan Sharif is moving this week, so he is out all this week. We wish him well. You will be able to hear from Shan Sharif at 6:40 though, through the voice of Peyton Russell, the mind of Shan Sharif through the voice of Peyton Russell. So look out for that at 6:40. RJ Choppy, Jerry Jones spoke on Sunday night.
Yes, he did.
At the owners' meetings in Orlando. And it's reached a point where there's one of two responses to Jerry Jones speaking, I feel like, over the last several years. Either it's, ooh, Jerry Jones is speaking. I got to turn this on. I got to tune into this. Or,
ooh,
like it feels like right now, a lot of people saying, oh, Jerry Jones is speaking. Don't care. I don't want to hear what Jerry has to say right now. Too mad. Don't want to know what he has to say. But I think it is important whenever he speaks to talk, especially Chop when it's an unscheduled appearance, which is what it was on Sunday. According to reports, I was reading this from the Dallas Morning News. He wasn't scheduled to speak, but he was just kind of relaxed in the hallway outside of a conference room. Some of the beat writers, they were swarming. They smelled chum in the water. They came over and they cornered him on a couple of different subjects. And the one that's really drawing headlines this morning, Chop, is what he had to say about Tyron Smith. This is his quote about Jerry talking about Tyron leaving the Cowboys for the Jets. You know how highly he's thought of by us, but we can't afford that. He makes all of his incentives and things like that. We would be really wrecked. So, Chop, according to Jerry, they can't afford a $6.5 million base salary. And with all the incentives that he could potentially make, which means he's playing for you consistently and available, they couldn't afford a $20 million tackle, which still would have been outside the top 5 of offensive tackles. So what they're telling you is, right now, our financial state, where we're at with the cap, whatever else, we can't afford to pay top 5 money to an offensive tackle. And RJ Choppy, you say what to that?
I say to that, you had $100 million for oil and gas investments last week. So
there's no cap on oil investments.
No,
though.
I know, but there's no cap. Look, this is doing is just continuing the idea that there is a salary. We all know there is not a salary cap. There is, but there isn't. You could fix your way around it.
Here's what else.
And that was a problem. That sucks. Okay, we don't have money. That's garbage. That's garbage.
That's garbage. Here's what I'll say about the cap, because I fall in the middle. The idea of there is no cap. It's a myth. It's just some accounting trick, whatever else. Versus, oh my gosh, there's a cap. You absolutely can't do anything if your cap's tied up. I fall in the middle. Is the cap just a nothingness and you don't have to worry about it at all? No, that's not the case. Eventually, it's...
Yeah, you got to worry about it in some regard.
The day's going to come where you're going to have to pay up.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that there's room to maneuver it. And there's certainly ways to maneuver the Tyron Smith deal if you want to do that. The thing is that they just clearly didn't want to do it. That's where we've hit at this point, I think, Chop, is that they had no interest in getting this done with Tyron, except on their terms completely, that completely 100% protected them.
Right.
And when it became clear that that wasn't going to be the case, they were done with it. Right now, Chop, $8.65 million. That is Tyron Smith's cap number with the New York Jets.
Okay.
8.65. Why can't you afford that?
They could have done that, I think, right?
You can very easily afford that. You know how much money you free up off your cap if you just sign CeeDee Lamb to an extension? Up to $13 million. Up to $13 million.
So that's important.
So are they doing this because they don't want to extend these guys?
Okay, so it's similar, I think, to what Shan had talked about last week. The idea that if you don't free up that money, if that money's not there, it's like when Shan says, "Oh, I don't have my tax return yet. Sorry, can't do it." Like it's just an excuse. It's something they have in place because as soon as they want to do something, they can flip the switch as necessary. They can get extensions done. They can, restructure guys. They can release guys. They can do all sorts of accounting tricks to try to free up that money. They've got, if they get an extension done with CD, if they get an extension done with Dak, you're talking about, that's $40 million right there. Just by handling stuff that you say you want to handle, which is, keeping our own. That's what we're worried about.
Right, they can do that.
We don't want to play out in the free agent waters. We're worried about keeping our own. Instead, what you've got the Cowboys doing right now is just saying, "Oh man, her hands are tied." It's like, but they're not really. You could make it work, and you're just choosing not to. And that's what's frustrating, I think, right now.
It is frustrating. It is very frustrating. They're deviating from. Look, I like their plan generally.
Yeah,
I'm not a huge fan of living in the free agency pool. I don't want to live like that. I think it's. I know that there are stats that show that the teams that spend the most increase their wins. That's because teams that spend the most generally are bad teams, and you have nowhere to go but up.
Now you would acknowledge you have to
spend something
because you have to sign. Like, you need bodies.
Yeah, this team lost. They did nothing but lose. So this has been like it's not. It hasn't been. Sellers generally win. The problem with this is that they didn't really sell. They just lost. If they had sold, they would have gotten draft picks for these guys.
Which
all they're going to get is comp picks, which are going to be, mid to late rounds. If you had sold them, and this is what teams a lot of times will do. Carolina should have done this with Burns. Right? They had somebody offered him 2 1s last year at the deadline, and they said no because they were trying to salvage a season. What?
Oh, what? Not only that, they also traded DJ Moore because they didn't want to give up Brian Burns.
Right. So
and then what did they end up doing? They lose him for a second and a fifth or whatever that was, or whatever the sign and trade was, the deal they negotiated.
Did it wind up being a sign and trade?
It was like a second or something. But like still, it's like, okay, well, the whole reason you didn't want to give up DJ Moore, but you really didn't want to give up Brian Burns, so you did it.
Right.
And you didn't want to give up Brian Burns, so you wouldn't go get 2 first-round picks for him. And so
that's what bad franchises do.
And the problem is that Dallas right now, I feel like, is mismanaging things. Here's the thing I want to consider, Chop, and get your thoughts on. What if this isn't mismanagement from Dallas? What if this isn't negligence from Dallas? What if when Jerry said all in, he did not mean spending a bunch in free agency, but what he legitimately meant was, I'm all in on 2024, meaning 2024 is the evaluation year for this core. If Dak's going to be here, Mike McCarthy's going to be here, people in our personnel department, Micah Parsons even, like, this is an evaluation year for, do I want to continue to build on this core or do I want to blow it up? And if I'm making that determination right now, I am not spending to add to that core until I know that I'm keeping it.
Well, is that what he wrote on the notepad that he scribbled out?
Oh my gosh. That's what you're obsessed with this morning.
I can't stop thinking about it.
Isn't it just
because there's nothing on that notepad? He didn't write anything on that notepad.
Okay, so isn't it doodling potentially? Like,
yeah, it could be. But is that what look?
Sean sits here every morning and just draws like spirals.
Sean's not a billionaire. Sean's not the owner of Dallas. He's the general manager of Dallas Cowboys.
Right? Ryan has the photo up on the fan cam there. It's a bunch of squiggles.
All right, but here's the question: what the hell was on the pages that were folded over? Okay, he folded something over to get to a clean page.
Okay, can I make a suggestion? I was clearly not there.
He wrote nothing. He wrote nothing on that paper.
What do you do when you want to make sure that you got some ink in your pen? Like if you're curious, is the phone? Yeah. Is it possible he flipped over relevant pages, went, hold on, let me see if this pen works, and did one of those and just scribbled?
It's possible.
Because that's what it looks like.
That's a lot of scribble, though. I mean, he scribbled all over you can't scribble in the middle of the page, though, because you can't write. You would scribble in the corner, on the top, on that, what's they called up here, the border? The header?
Sure.
What do they call that where you put your name on the top of the paper, on the top of, like...
the header.
The header?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You put your name up on the header, on top of the college-ruled legal pad, which you chose white, not yellow. That's always an interesting decision.
Nothing wrong with that.
What goes through the decision-making process of choosing white versus yellow or yellow versus white.
They couldn't afford yellow.
They couldn't. There you go. So then he scribbles all over the middle of it, which means he was never going to use that to write. That's there. It's a prop. It's a prop.
Okay. That's look. I think that it's probably as simple as he was just testing the pen out. That's what I think he was doing. Because I think Jerry is aware enough of optics that he would know better than to just flip that open and have it there if he was just mindlessly scribbling. Yeah. So,
but anyway, to answer your question, I don't know what he means. Like maybe that is what he means by all in.
But I mean, is that possibly what he means? It's just like I'm all in terms of like I'm all in on this being the year. Not that I'm all in on spending to build a route, but like I'm all in on this is the year for me to determine if this is the right team or not. And so it has to work this year. Otherwise, we're going to start tearing things down. Not a rebuild, but you might start renovating.
I mean, I think that's a great a great point. I think it's very, very plausible, and I think it's going to be the reality. But does that mean that they don't sign Dak this year? They let him go into the season unsigned? Does that mean they don't sign Micah and CeeDee Lamb this year? Does that mean that they don't that maybe they trade down in the first round to stockpile more picks?
So that's an interesting thought. So if you're to look at, you're familiar with the trade value chart. I know you've got a modernized one.
Chase Stewart's or Jimmy Johnson?
I'm just telling you, a lot of the NFL uses the Jimmy Johnson one still.
You know what? That was interesting because the article I read the other day said nobody does anymore. Like they use it as a baseline.
It's a hybrid.
Yeah, they use it as a baseline, and then they use the other one for like player value.
Let's just go with the Draft Tech has the trade value chart every year. If you were to see Dallas there at pick 24, this is a relatively deep draft, Chop. Sitting there at pick 36 is the Washington Commanders, a couple picks into the second round. And the Commanders have a ton of draft capital this year. They had the $80 million in cap space that they had to spend to. If you want to take pick 36 from Washington in the second round, and then you take their pick 78 in the third round, the draft trade chart, that is an exact equal match for Dallas's pick at 24. So if you don't have a fourth round pick, would you rather pick up a second, have 2/3? You basically end up with 2 2s and 2/3. Is that getting you closer to at least filling some of these spots that you have, some of these holes you have?
So you instead of having one at 24, you have what?
So instead of having 24, 56, and 87, you would have 36, 56, 78, and 87. So you're picking 4 times in 50 picks. And keeping in mind, you don't have a fourth rounder.
Oh, yeah, I'd rather have that.
You'd rather have that than the first round pick? It is a deep draft. It's a deep draft.
The thing with the first round pick is you get the 5th year. So
you do. That could be a reason why Carolina picking at the top of the first round, right? Carolina's picking at the top of the first. If Carolina said, hey, we'd like to get into the first round because we don't have our first, and we'll trade you some of our pick depth. We'll give you the top pick in the 4th round because we want to make sure that we've got.
Yeah, I'd rather have. I think I'd rather have the late 1, the early 2. You get the 5th year. I think I'd rather have that.
Even knowing that you're without that 4th round pick and you are thin right now on your roster because you won't sign.
Good question. I mean, you could trade down. You could trade a second rounder. You could trade back in the second. You're not going to pick up a 4th for that.
No, that's the thing. They're in a tough spot right now.
Or you could trade back up from the 6th and the 5th to get into the 4th.
Could. I mean, look, you've got these future comp picks coming your way. You're going to have a lot of next year.
Your future comp picks.
You need people now, though, Chop. That's the biggest problem. You need people now. And the question now is, now that you've lost Tyron Smith, do you need a left tackle? Jerry said yesterday, hey, don't dismiss the idea of Tyler Smith actually going to tackle. No, we talked about guard, but he might play tackle. Jerry said that's a possibility. That's on the table. And so, I mean, that'll be something further that we're going to have to discuss, not only today, but just, as we lead up to the draft here in about a month.
I think it is I do think it's a draft day trade. If you're going to do that, if you're going to trade out of the first, it's like who's on the clock.
Get Costner on the horn.
It's who. Yes. It's who's on the board. Who's available when you're on the clock.